Hello, everybody. Welcome to Last Man Standing, the Circa Survivor Pool podcast. My name is Tony Farmer. He is Ryan Hogue, the last man standing in the 2003 NFL draft, drafted by the Raiders. He also does the pregame shows for the Raiders, the Las Vegas Raiders currently. We're here to react to the Circa Survivor selection count, and we have a lot to talk about, Ryan. There's some very interesting strategy at play. There was some news that broke today that could potentially shake things up for this week and later on. And we are now down to 50 people left in Circa Survivor. Not a no pick, but one person went down with the 49ers on Thursday night in a rainy game against the Rams. Gutsy move. That person, if they had won, would have been 5 losses away from winning it all. So they took a big swing like we saw the person do with the Titans last week. Once again, it doesn't work out. This person goes down. I'm sure they're regretting that decision. RIP to them. But let's go ahead and take a look at actually, before we get there, Ryan, we got to talk about some news that broke today. Max Crosby out for the year. I think some people may have already put their Circa Survivor selections in, and then this news broke later. If you put your pick into Circa, you can't change it. If you put your pick in with your proxy may allow you to change it before their deadline, but you can't change your pick once it's already in at Circa. So I wonder if some people didn't know this news, and then it breaks later. I've got a lot to say about the news, Ryan, but I also want to give you a chance to talk because I've just been blabbing to open this show. What stands out to you when you look at this list?
Well, the first alarming thing for me is that there's nobody on Atlanta. I think Mike Tice talked a lot about it in that, towards the end of the season, you stop worrying about the teams that you love. You start fading the teams that you hate. And, the Raiders, 9 straight games they've lost. The Giants obviously look like a train wreck. And, with the exception of those 2 teams, and I guess the Bears, right, are definitely in flux. But I was shocked to see that Minnesota was the top one, especially anybody that watched our show. Although we in the past we've talked about Minnesota, Chicago, and last year or right around this time, right, that game gave you nightmares because and I talked you out of it. I vividly recall the Bears in Minnesota always play close, and the Bears always give Minnesota fits. If you watched the first time they played, Jalen Johnson shut down Justin Jefferson, absolutely shut him down. Justin Jefferson, I think, only had 2 catches in that game. He definitely drew some pass interference penalties, but if anybody can do well, from a defensive standpoint, it's the Bears versus the Vikings offense. And then you go on the flip side of that, Keenan Allen last year in the game against Minnesota, granted he was playing for the Chargers. I was at that game, 18 for 217 or 229 or something like that, 18 catches. So it was, I think the Bears are absolutely in play in that game. Whereas the Saints, for example, the quarterback position is just so important. And the fact that they're on their 3rd, now 4th quarterback. I can't see them beating a really hungry, desperate Washington team with their best defensive player now being traded for and playing a revenge angle. So
let me ask you this, Ryan. If you're on the Bengals against the Titans and you hear the news today that this guy Ford, he's the backup tackle because your starting left tackle is already out, Orlando Brown. Now, the backup left tackle pops up on the injury report today with an illness. Now, Sheldon Rankins, the defensive tackle for the Bengals, has had an illness for 3 weeks. So my brain is already is there something fucking going around the locker room? Is there some flu going around? Does he have the same thing that Sheldon Rankins had? Do you start to get a little nervous now? You've got 2 guys on the team with an illness. That can't make you feel good. Not only are you down to maybe a 3rd string left tackle, but there may also be some sort of virus going around the damn locker room.
Yeah, what my thinking more is that Cincinnati has let down more people in this Circa Survivor competition than any other team.
It started week 1, dude. It started week 1. Yep.
They've had thousands they've let down thousands of people. And so I don't know like why people continue. Yeah, Joe Burrow's playing out of his mind. I get it. And Jamar Chase playing out of his mind. Other than those two players, though, it's 11-man, not, or it's a 22-man roster that play, not a 2-man roster. So, and the Titans, they, depending on if L'Jarius Sneed, is he playing in this one, Tony? That's something I don't know. But
yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest, off the top of my head either.
He's in the past has played well against Jamar Chase. So, I don't know. Again, against a good defensive team late in December when weather could be a concern, like there's just bad things that tend to happen. So,
Ryan, let me ask you this. I'm going to give you an over-under 10, besides the 49ers, who are already out. We're down to 50. Over-under 10 entries eliminated this week. What are you going to take?
Well, first of all, Washington, that's a really interesting abbreviation for Washington. I think that's funny. Over, under. I mean, I'm going to say under, but I think Minnesota could absolutely lose. I could see Arizona absolutely getting pushed because I think New England coming off a bye is live and sneaky. Although Arizona's right in the mix of things with their division, I understand. But, again, I mean, if we're going by statistics, like statistically, I don't think like it would say that more than 10. 10's a pretty high number. But, I think there will be absolutely some people that go home. And, again, we are in that territory, though, Tony, that you shouldn't feel great about really any of the picks. I mean, I guess Baltimore, because of the amount of points they're favored by coming off a bye, you'd feel good. But, again, like, it's NFL. No team's going to give up. No team's folding. It is interesting from an organizational standpoint, though. Like, and I brought this question up on my radio show to the host of the Raiders, and I asked, from like Tom Brady, if you asked him if we were out having a beer with Tom Brady, and we said, Tom, for you, what's a successful finish to the season for the Raiders? What's his answer, Tony?
Losing is successful. They need a better draft pick. Absolutely.
Yeah, right. So obviously the players aren't going to feel that way. They feel a successful season is winning the rest of the games.
Right.
Coaching standpoint, they're coaching through their lives. But from an organizational standpoint, right? I think the only success you have is if you come out and you're healthy. You find some young guys that can play off rookie contracts. And then lastly, you're solidifying the number one spot, right? And so from an organizational standpoint, can you do that, still be ethical, not technically tank, but, and Max Crosby would be the last person, even if the upper management was like, Max, we're going to have you do surgery instead of play. Like he's like the last person would actually be like, nah.
Yeah.
That would do it for the team or anything. But it does make you think like, hey, Aiden O'Connell might be able to play. Well, we're going to just give it to Desmond Ridder, and Antonio, you're going to make that happen. And actually, we're just going to do one half of Desmond Ridder, and then we're going to give Carter, the practice squad guy, we're going to give him the second half and just see if he can, create what he did in the preseason.
Well, everything you're saying about the Raiders, I think you can copy and paste and say it about the Giants too. Those are the teams that are fighting for the number one pick right now.
Yeah.
Those are two teams who you got to think the ownership wants them to lose, but the coaching staff wants to look good. The players, of course, are playing 100%, like you said. But the ownership of those two squads, I don't think they want to see wins from here on out. And can you think of two teams in the NFL who need a quarterback more than the Giants and Raiders going forward? I'm not a college football guy, but what everybody's telling me, this is a quarterback heavy draft class. Like, the idea of these teams tanking down the road is fascinating, but you got the Raiders. I think they got the Jaguars left on their schedule. They got the Saints left on their schedule. You want to trust the Jaguars against the maybe tanking Raiders team? You want to trust the Saints against the maybe tanking Raiders team? Good luck. So a lot to think about here. But I'm going to go ahead and pull these numbers up again. There were 24 people, Ryan, who could have used Baltimore. 12 decided to use Baltimore. Half of them. So that means we got 12 people left that are, I assume, planning on using Baltimore on Christmas. Of course, you do have Baltimore at the end of the season against the Browns as well. Who knows if that game will mean something to them. I think these 12 people are all planning on using the Ravens on Christmas.
Tony, we have a couple of guys that had multiple entries. Who did they pick?
Good call. Good question. So NFL Wise guys, once again, loaded up on the same team. They went with Washington. There were 6 entries, by the way, who could have used Washington. 5 did. 2 of them were NFL Wise guys. And then C3 picks, 1 on Minnesota, 1 on Arizona. So they split them up a little bit there. So going to be interesting to see how this all works out tomorrow.
How about Steven Flores, our buddy Steven?
Man, I got to let Steven, if you're in this chat, speak up, because I'm on Survivor Atlas right now. And Steven, I don't remember your entry name, and I don't think it's Steven. And so, yeah, I don't have that handy here. But if anybody is alive and well in Circa Survivor, I know we've got 5 or 6 of you who are still alive who have been watching this show. So if you're in the chat, let us know who you went with. Let us know why you went with them, because this, as we talked about in the show earlier this week, do you use the Ravens? Do you save the Ravens? Really fascinating from a strategic standpoint. Split half down the middle. Some people decide to save them. Some people decide to use them. I can't wait to go on to Survivor Atlas after this show, Ryan, and see those 12 people who use the Ravens. Who do they got left behind them? Are they stuck now with a potential underdog like Chicago? Are they stuck now with a Steelers team, or do they have a Chiefs behind them? There's 7 people who have the Chiefs. Do they have a Seattle in their back pocket? That's what I'm curious to see, what kind of corner these folks might have painted themselves into. Go ahead, Ryan.
My question to you is, why do you think there's 0 people that picked Atlanta? Because I feel like a lot of people, the majority, had Atlanta still on their thing. Why do you think, especially with, I mean, the Raiders have quarterback. They don't know who's playing quarterback. They don't have their best defensive player. Granted, that was a late thing, but their best corners out, their best safeties out. Like, I mean, their best D tackles out.
Yeah, it's a good question. I was expecting a person or 2 on Atlanta. I think if people had this information and known nobody was going to be on Atlanta, I bet you could coax one person onto Atlanta. But I think the main reason nobody's on the Falcons, let me read you their schedule for the rest of the season. Giants at Atlanta, December 22nd. Falcons at Commanders, you're not going to use that there. And then Panthers at Falcons, last game of the season. I know the Panthers are playing a lot better, Ryan, but when you're down to week 18 and you've used up 19 teams and it's slim pickings, that Falcons at Panthers might be some people's best option week 18. So I think there are people that are saving the Falcons for that Giants game and maybe even for that Panthers game, last game of the season. I think that's why you don't see more people on Atlanta.
Okay.
But like I said, tell people now you'll be the only one on the island. Do you want to take Atlanta? By the way, Max Crosby's out now. I think with that information in mind, there might be some people that are a little regretful and wish they had taken Atlanta at this point. Alexander Chin still alive in Circa Survivor. Congrats, Alexander. Everybody listening is jealous of you. Congratulations. He says, I'm on Joe Burrow. And then he says Atlanta next week. So he's saving Atlanta for next week. He's taking the Bengals this week without their left tackle, maybe without their backup tackle. We're wishing you luck there, Alexander. We want to see you do well on this show. It's going to be a fun week. It's going to be a little different than last week, Ryan, when all the Survivor games were crammed into that early slot on Sunday. It's going to be spread out a little bit more.
Tony, who's your most likely of the teams that are picked that are going to lose?
Oh, honestly, I think the Vikings, Cardinals, and Bengals are all vulnerable. But if I can only choose one, I'm going to go ahead with the Cardinals. I just think that Drake May is special, and the Cardinals are starting to fall off a cliff. And I could see Arizona upsetting in Arizona. I could see New England upsetting Arizona in Arizona.
Okay.
That offensive line for the Patriots is really bad, though. It's really bad.
Really bad.
If they can play like C+ effort in this game, which is a stretch for them, then I think they'll be okay. But they're off a bye week, so they could have figured some shit out during the bye week. So we'll see how that goes. Hey, Call of Duty's out. That's not good for Kyler. I say that somewhat jokingly. Love that joke. We do have some more comments rolling in. Alexander says, going to Circa tomorrow. If I win, I need to get line of credit. That's a good call. Anybody alive should know that. Jeffrey Benson over at Circa has been advertising essentially. If you got good credit, come and see me. And if you're still alive in Circa, we might be able to extend you a line of credit. And that can be helpful for
Alexander. I will be at Circa tomorrow as well. Come find me. I'll be in the VIP area, I believe, doing something with James for the show, for the documentary that we talked about. If you were on the last episode, if not, then we'll get you in the documentary. So come find me.
Speaking of that last episode, Ryan and I did a full analysis, full breakdown of every single game from a Circa Survivor perspective. So go ahead and check out that episode. We taped it on Thursday. It's an hour long. We had James on the show. He was a great guest as well. Make sure you do check that out. Ryan, this is going to be fun tomorrow. I can't wait, man. I wish I could hit fast forward right now and have kickoff be starting, because this is going to be a blast with only 5 games picked. It's going to be incredible. You got any other thoughts before we let people go here?
No, it should be a fun one. Yeah, I'm speechless. I really don't know what to think at this point in the NFL. Usually, the picture is a little clearer. I feel like we're back to week 2. Like, I'm just like, I don't know, just toss them in a hat and pull it out. Like, I don't know who's going to win some of these games, but if I was on Atlanta, I would feel really good. But again, you just never know. Raiders haven't given up. The Baltimore coming off a bye could be flat early. Who knows? Right? So there's so many different angles. That's the beauty of the NFL, and we'll see. I don't think it'll be super chalky tomorrow, especially on some of the games that people did not pick. So we'll find out.
Yeah, by the way, nobody had Denver available. I should have mentioned that last show. We talked about the Denver game, the Colts game. Nobody could have picked Denver even if they wanted to. So FYI on that. Broncos are gone. All right, we've done all we can, folks. Enjoy your Sunday slate. Good luck to those who are still alive. Remember to enjoy every second of it. You never know when your Circa Survivor season is going to end. So soak it up. Have fun. Take care, guys.